first wanted to tell you thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and answer the fans' questions. We really appreciate it. I know you don't do stuff like this a lot, so I appreciate you saying yes.
Yeah, no problem. Like that.
So what I'll do is, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
No, like I said, I had actually, my wife was on call, so I had to watch the baby tonight, so it ended up working out all right.
Oh, that's good. I appreciate it. So what I'll do is I'll start off asking one of my questions, and then I'll get right into the fans' questions, okay?
All
right. So how long have you been racing, and what got you into big rim racing?
I've been drag racing probably since like 2003, and then really started big rim racing 2015. So, like I said, I mean, I worked at a shop where we built motors for a lot of the big rim cars, but, you know, they weren't really into big rim racing that much then. I mean, at that time, they were, you know, putting, you know, slicks on in street racing. It wasn't until, like I said, 2015 that they really started racing on the big rims.
Okay. This is a great question. How did you come to become Flacco's driver?
We just had a lot of mutual friends, and then I used to drive White Boy Dave's donk. So we'd always be doing track rentals, you know, most of the guys down in South Florida. And I would always joke around with Flacco about how I was going to whip his ass with a small block. So I just kept always every time. We had mutual friends, and one of my like good buddies welded at the shop where Flacco's car was. So, you know, he was real good friends with Flacco. So we were always just shooting the shit. And then Rick at Strictly Business Racing, I guess, wanted to focus on his G-body more and didn't want to drive. And they were looking for a driver. And like I said, my buddy told them, Flacco, that, you know, let Eddie drive it. And, you know, with the big blower, I was interested. So then I started driving, and it worked out good. We started doing good stuff.
What year did you start driving for him?
Probably like 2017 or 18. I forgot, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It's been, like I said, before Money on the Line 1. So we're going on, you know, we already did 3 of them. So it's been 3 years.
All right. Oh, this is a funny question. The picture I put up of you in my story with the money in the blower, they said, who did you win all that money from?
I think that was like Country Steve. So we beat Country C at, what was it? A big rim race in Orlando. Yeah. So.
Oh, this is a good question. Do you ever have plans to build your own dunk and drive it?
I mean, I bought a donk that we were going to make into like a drift donk and like an all-out, just like a stupid thing that one day someone locally had a 73 body for sale. And then, you know, we thought it might have decent parts. So me and Jughead at Jughead's Music went in on it together. So we ended up driving up, picking it up. It was kind of a little more rustier than we cared for. So we said, man, fuck it. Let's just make it like a drift donk. I'll get sponsors. We'll wrap it. So we started doing all the body work on it and got most of it all fixed up. And then, you know, I got my own race car, a G-body, that I've just been real focused on, and a bunch of other customers' cars that we just kind of didn't really have time to finish it. And I was just too busy, and so was Jughead. It was taking up too much space, so we just got rid of it. But like I said, I enjoy more of the real race cars, you know, coming from a speed driver, you know, that to me, you know, the donks are fun, but, you know, I kind of have more of the adrenaline rush for the fast cars.
Why you say real race cars? Don't say fast enough for you?
No, they're not. No, like I said, they're fun. You know, like I said, I used to joke around with Flacco all the time about saying that, hey, you know, we need to bolt some slicks or drag radials on this thing. You have to do like a big wheelie because, you know, my race car is done. You might have to find another driver. That, like I said, it's fun and it's cool. You know, like the fans like it a lot, but coming from, a race car driver, it's just not very challenging to drive them as much as the faster cars.
Oh. So y'all hear that? The dumps ain't got nothing on the fast cars.
But the thing is that the donks they're real heavy, so they actually just drive pretty simple down the track. It's not as hard as people think. That the race cars are harder to drive than the donks are. So, like I remember early on, I was driving, and I make a pass, I come back, and I'm telling Flacco, and I'm saying, "Hey man, this gauge is reading this gauge is reading that, blah blah blah." And they're like, "What do you mean? How are you looking at all this?" I'm like, "Well, what the hell else am I supposed to do? The thing's so slow." I got bored. I was trying to turn the radio on, but I didn't know how to turn it on while going down the track. So that used to be the joke.
So you used to being in race cars that go what? How many seconds?
In the eighth, they go like mid-4s in the 8th mile.
Wow.
So that's, like a low 7-second car.
Wow.
But like I said, the main thing is the donks, they weigh so much that like the wind and everything, that once you get them going straight, they kind of just drive themselves. You're not really fighting it. Plus, we have to pull so much power out of them to keep it on that tire that, they don't get too radical. Obviously they do. Like I said, you've seen, when stuff does go wrong, you saw a big low spin out and stuff like that. You have to be mindful. Like with the green machine, it makes a lot of power. So sometimes around like the 1,000-foot mark, they'll try to skate around. And then, sometimes there you get worried. But like it weighs so much, it doesn't really make the drastic moves as some of the smaller, lighter cars. They like to jump around.
Right. Oh, this is a great question. Why do you think it took so long for Flacco to get his car dialed in?
Actually, it didn't. The first week I ever drove it, it was pretty fast. He just had bad luck, to be honest with you. That's always the question. Everyone is like, "Oh, you guys finally got Flacco's car right." And to be honest with you, the first weekend I ever got in it, we got it right and was running good. We just kind of fell into bad luck with the transmission braking. We tried. The problem is we have like a pretty good team of people. So when we see faults in the data, we try to make improvements. So, I'm sure if we didn't always try to keep going faster and faster every time and we just let the car sit, it would look more consistent to the fans. But, 80% of the passes, or probably 90%, it goes down almost every time. It's actually one of the more consistent cars I drive. It's just when it's, for some reason during the shows or whatever, it just has bad luck. So we used to joke around about after a while that we had to send Flacco to like some Haitian voodoo guy or something, because there was some curse, because we would go testing, in Bradenton with like pro mods, and we'd make 5 passes in a row perfectly fine. Then we would go to Orlando, make 3 passes in a row perfect. Come to Palm Beach, we go everywhere. We make 25 perfect passes, and then the one pass, against someone is when it breaks. So, that's really just been the curse of that car, is we always have it right. And I think we're one of the more consistent donks, even like when we do the track rentals, and Big Lowe's there, Hollywood's there, we're all a family from South Florida. But usually we go down more times than than they do. Because like I said, the blower, we have it turned down, so it's real smooth. So usually it goes down no problem. It's just, like I said, it's just weird that even like on race day, we turn it down more and it acts up. So it's just been like a real weird deal about that, where it's just been like shitty luck, to be honest with you.
I told people, I said, when they get it right, whatever's happening, I'm betting with Flacco. And when it was at the Big Round Super Bowl, that's when y'all beat Cece, right?
Yeah.
I said, I seen Flacco car. He got it right. I'm betting with him. I actually won. I was standing over there talking to Sherwood and Jet Fly. I didn't even know the race happened. All I seen was my Cash App start dinging. I was like,
there you go.
But yeah, I'm happy that all the bad luck is gone. You took him to the little voodoo person and you got the voodoo off of him. So
no, I mean, we still had the voodoo because, I mean, like I said, we lost the boost doctor, which that one we should have, it should have been a better race. And like I said, we've tested, like the other nitrous kit, and it worked fine. It's like I said, we raced Macho in Bradenton, and that the kit was working fine. We didn't touch anything. And then against Boost Doctor, all of a sudden it didn't work and then backfired. So it's like a weird deal. Like we didn't touch nothing, like testing it was working fine. And then during the race, we don't even touch nothing and it breaks. So, I mean, and that's kind of one of the things where I think what the main problem we had with Flacco's car was the eager to make it perfect and not just race people, as I think a lot of times most cars don't go down the track next to each other. So I think if we jumped on people, more times than not, like we had chances to race two fly and Flacco wanted to make another test pass. I'm like, fuck the test pass, let's run, And then our test pass is perfect. And then, two fly, might have an issue and then we never end up racing. Or there's been a few of those instances where, we, push for, let's make one more test pass to make sure we're perfect. And then, it breaks later and the test pass, it went down no problem.
Right. And you could have saved that test pass and went down with
exactly. Like I said, usually I think like for most of the time, we always been way faster than most of the donks early on. And then, like I said, some people, Flop accidentally told or showed his time slip. And that's what got us black flagged for like a year. No one would race us. So like we were actually running fine and ready to race. And everyone saw we were the more consistent donk. We just actually, showed the time slip in an argument one time. And then, like I said, they black flagged us. That's when they were like, oh, you got to have this, or you got to, remember when Cadwick was like, oh, well, I only street race, then I only track race, then you got to have music. Like each one of those comments was him trying to dodge us with stuff.
Flacco scared all the money out.
Yeah, he definitely did. Yeah, so half the time we try not even to tell Flacco what's going on sometimes.
How do you balance racing and shop life and all you do outside of home with your personal life?
That's actually a really, really tough thing that I've been going through is that I work on so many race cars, and then I have a squad of cars, that we run under that Team Obnxsedz deal. So sometimes that hurts us in the shop of trying to get customer cars done, or then we have so many customer cars and then like my personal car doesn't get done, the race car. So that's what we're trying to transition into, selling maybe more parts, because we have a big steel fabrication shop with like CNC machines, CNC plasmas, a bunch of different stuff, and manufacturing in China. Actually, we have some stuff going on over there. So the talk has been actually just making parts so we could just sell those and then keep the shop more for the race, for the team cars. So like I said, my car.
What y'all make?
We started making like the donk frames. Like, so if you want to notch the frame of the donk, we have a CNC plasma cutter. So we started plasma cutting all the donk frames, the G-body frames. Then also with the CNC machine, we started CNCing like the center caps. So like some guys wanted to put like the Caprice sign instead of the Forgiato sign, so we made those. And then we were just talking about making like some of the other little trinkets. Like we were actually talking about making jewelry, for the donk guys and stuff like that, with different Chevy emblems and stuff like that. So I think that's what you might see coming out soon, is that, all of our race cars got pushed to the back doing customer cars, and then me racing so many other cars, it was too hard to balance it all. So I think what we're trying to do is manufacture stuff that doesn't take up as much room in the shop. I mean, our shop is 6,000 square feet. It's a pretty big shop, but just with all the cars and pretty much each person that works in the shop has a race car. So it's like pretty hard, to say, hey, wait up, we got to work on someone's car and we got to race this weekend. So like, wow. You'll see like the Regal that I have a partner in, that should be coming out here in the next month, and that should be a real showstopper for everyone. But it's a full-blown race car.
It's funny how people who watch this all the time, they can see my wheels turning.
Yeah.
Because they're like, KP is thinking.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to off of here.
That was kind of the talk is, the big rim racing and the donk culture is a fun culture, even though to me it's not as fun racing the donks, just because, like I said, they don't give me that adrenaline rush I'm used to in the faster cars, but there's more of a business to it, so I think that's what I enjoy of it is more of the, the business aspect of, what could happen. Like I said, we even have, we've talked with a few people with like Nava and stuff about making a clothing line with things. Like I said, we have a big thing set up with a bunch of manufacturers in China. So we could do, bags, clothing, all sorts of stuff. We have, a good deal because we make golf clubs. And that is kind of how we have these hookups.
I'm definitely going to be talking to you off here. So this is my question, and it's a two-part question. And so I ask everyone who comes on the show this question, and it's always interesting to see their answers. What do you think is helping big rim racing, and what is hurting big rim racing?
I think what is helping big rim racing is you could kind of get into it in the different cities and not have, like that much racing experience, I would kind of say, I think in some of the harder racing categories, you have more built programs, of people who've been generation to generation of racers. So it's kind of hard to beat those guys. As the big rim racing, you're limited to how much traction the wheels and the big rims have, and your competition is also still trying to figure it out. So like I said earlier, in times where we thought we had to be perfect because some of our team, we were reviewing data and saw flaws in our program, which we were still way faster than anyone. That didn't even matter, but just for our own sake, we were trying to perfect it, where it was like, hey, wait up. The converter could be doing this and that, and we should pick up more speed, so we're going to do this. And we were putting the car to the limit more times than was necessary. As, I think now you could see, like when Donk Master goes out of town, there'll be other big rim cars racing, but it's not top tier cars. So I think you could kind of get into it without having to race, full done programs. As long as your car goes A to B, you'll do good. As like Mighty Mouse, from the Hollywood camp, he does really good. He doesn't have the fastest car, but he consistently goes down and just has a clean program. And like I said, he just enjoys racing, and he does very, very well. I think his record is way better than ours, and he is, seconds slower. But, I said, we're all part of the same team, South Florida. Like I said, me and Chris get along real good. We BS with each other. And like I said, Hollywood and we've always been, in the same camp together. So we all help each other out no matter what. So,
what do you think is hurting big rim racing?
I think what is hurting it is the social media presence of people just trying to, like they don't want to lose, like they have their little personality they're trying to keep for their city. And that was kind of what we had issues earlier on at some of the money on the line races, or Donk Master has issues with his races, as when people try to say you're gate hustling people and you put people on a flyer and then those races don't happen, then the fans get pissed off that, hey, we paid X amount of money, X amount of VIP money to get there, and you guys aren't racing. So that is why, like on Money on the Line, we ended up having, instead of paying people to come to, into town, because that's what a lot of times some of the out-of-towners want is, hey, you're going to help us with gas money, this, that, whatever, and then the cars wouldn't race, and then the fans get pissed. So this time, like on Money on the Line 3, we put money on top of every grudge race and pot and kind of did more of like a pay-per-view / boxing match where there was the headliner, a co-headliner, and then stuff underneath it. And then we told the racers, hey, you only get paid when you race. Right. So that's what happened with Boost Doctor when he broke. I told him that because me and him were the headliners. So we had a pot already. We were putting $4,000 on top of that race, no matter what we were going to bet. So I told him, hey, and he was kind of pissed about how we were arranging that payment. And I was explaining to him, say, hey, man, if you go out there and break and I pay you, then the fans are pissed because, they didn't get to see what we were advertising as the show. Right. But, so I said that whatever you need to do in preparation before you bring your car to make sure it doesn't break is what you need to do. I said, if you want to make test passes, you can make test passes. But if you break before the main race, you're not getting paid. So he broke in a test pass. And then, I told him, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you fixed so the fans could see the show. And I ended up buying him out of that, like the $4,000 we were going to put up. We ended up having someone drive an hour out of the way, buy a rear from someone, bring it to him so he could get the car fixed. And then we didn't actually even gamble that race. We just had a $2,000 bounty on top. Winner takes the $2,000, and that's how we were able to put that final race on. And then same thing with Hollywood versus Grand Nasty. That they were having a hard time getting their negotiations right. That, once it got towards the end of the night, say, hey, you guys aren't getting paid unless you guys race. So whatever, enough of this, bullshit. The fans are here to see you guys race. So that was the thing. That's what actually made them finally do their race. And like I said, Hollywood ended up winning and taking the extra money on top of the pot. It was, I think, like another $2-3 grand. I forgot what it was, but that's kind of how we've been structuring it to ensure the fans get to see the show that they're showing up for. Because, that was the biggest problem for a while is, fans were going to these shows in Reynolds or wherever, and they weren't seeing the races. People were showing up, but then they were saying their cars were broke, and then just turned into a car show. So I think that was the big hurt is, trying to make sure that, the racers realize that they're, the fans are there to see them and to race, not just to see them. So
that's a good, that sounds really, really good. Cause I'm I'm a fan more than anything. And I gotta be honest, 2019 sucked with the racing. It sucked. We just, I'm not even a big rim racer, and I almost retired 5 times last year. It was not a good year.
Yeah, like I said, the problem is there was a lot of egos that got involved, and then it ended up being like a lot of stalemate and bargaining, and then the show, who's going to whose show. It was a battle of that, and there wasn't something that, the racers were there to race. They were there of, hey, how do I get the most likes, or how do I, say something but then not get caught into something. So, yeah, as you said, that people are saying that there's more shit talking than there is of racing, as what we realized that, so that we came up with that plan to say, hey, we'll pay the racers to race, but you have to race. We're not going to pay you to show up. We're paying you to perform, because that's, what it is.
What is a fun fact that your fans or followers or supporters would be surprised to know about you? So, for instance, CEO Larry told us he flies planes, and I think Jay Malcolm told us he plays the saxophone. Easy said he used to be in a step group. So something that we would never know about you unless you told us.
I don't know. I mean, I pretty much like my whole life revolves about racing right now. So there's really not that much difference. I mean, I guess if there was a funny fact, would be that a lot of people, just think I'm like some like crazy white dude, as like my grandmother's black and half my family is black and Spanish. That most people don't see that in me. Then I guess that's kind of the funniest thing is that I got into an argument with Blue Magic once, and he was like, "Man, you ain't nothing but a cracker, this, that, whatever. You don't know about our people." And I'm like, "Our people?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm probably, I'm closer to the grudge game than you are, my man." I said, "I've been grudge racing for 20 years, and my family, is African American too." So I guess, that's a funny fact. That's when, people like start trying to call out and say stuff. I just sit there and laugh. I was like, if you guys only knew, but.
Yeah, I definitely would have never saw that. So that's a good one. Yeah. What's the most valuable lesson you've learned throughout your time in big rim racing?
I mean, like I said, I think the biggest lesson we've learned is you just, it's better to be lucky than good. That sometimes you just have to, pull up to the line and see what happens, And, like I've learned that earlier on in my grudge career was that you don't have to be the fastest car, and that's like what I said. Usually we always turn our cars down for the grudge race, knowing both cars don't go A to B together. It's like you'll see in a lot of the races, there's always one car backfiring, popping, spinning, as, with the big rim stuff, we were so worried about being perfect and gapping everyone, like Blanco wanted to put half a track on everyone that, we didn't really get enough races. And then finally, when the argument happened where he showed the time slip, then that's when freaked everyone out. And then we were once again not racing again. So.
Yeah. Don't let Flacco see the time slip. Don't let him scare the people away.
Yeah, that's the joke. Because every time I make a pass, sometimes we'll be testing. He's like, I'm gonna pull my pants down. I'm gonna show him that we're the big ones. I'm like, yo, just relax. Don't pull the pants down.
What's the best advice you would give to someone looking to get into the big rim racing?
I mean, what I always tell my customers is to know your budget is the main thing. Like if you want to be, number 1 through 3, like beat Flacco, beat Hollywood, beat Two Fly, beat those guys, you're going to have to spend, 80, 100 grand and break your car numerous times and fix it. I mean, like you see how many times Donkmaster hurts his motor. You've seen Two Fly break his transmission, drive shaft numerous times. You see Flacco's car break motors, trannies, everything. So if you're going to try to go to that level, know where it is. If you just want to be, number, say, 5 through 8 on the list, know that budget and who you're going to be racing. Or if you just say, hey, I just want to be part of the show and be number 10, 12 and do it, then that's fine. But just go into it knowing, what range you're going to be in is kind of what I always tell you. Like, so I have a lot of customers asking, hey, I want to go racing. I want to do this. And I always got to tell them, hey, man, I don't want to pocket watch you real quick. I'm not trying to check your pockets. I'm just trying to help you out where you're not stuck halfway through a build and then it doesn't happen. So, like I said, budget is the main thing, and then just kind of have a realization of, where you really stand or what you could afford to race and break.
So I bought a G-Body and I was like, I'm going to race it and I'm going to be the fastest and I'm going to be the fastest girl. And then them bills start coming in for stuff on the car. And I was like, phew, I might not need to be the fastest.
Yeah. Well, that's what I tell a lot of my customers. A lot of people don't realize that, so like say if you took like a pie chart of car enthusiasts, so there might be, millions of car enthusiasts, but 60 or 70%, the car is sitting there in their driveway with no motor, no nothing. They're saying for years what they're going to do. They're telling you about all their parts. They're telling you about this. So that's 60%. So then you get 20% of those people actually almost get the car to start, and then out of those 20, that's where they stop. They crank it up, and man, the bills are too worried to break it, and it's been at the paint shop. Then there's the 10% that fire it up and drive it. Then those people, all the cars break. There's no, they all break. So then out of that, there's 5% who build them, start them, drive them, break them, and then there's 3% who fix them and race it. So those are the people you see. So when everyone's like, oh, I want to be like Big Low, I want to be like Hollywood, they got to realize what it takes. And that's why I tell them about the budget, where I say, hey, man, like, you want to try to buy parts one time is, what you try to tell people. Buy the right part once, so you're not doing it twice. But realize when you buy, say someone buys 98 millimeter turbo, you got to realize that now you need 98 millimeter turbo fuel system. Now you need 98 millimeter turbo horsepower transmission capabilities. It snowballs. And then half the shit still don't work, or it breaks anyways. I had a car with all brand new parts, and half the shit brand new don't work, and we're sending it back, and we're trying to get it back and forth. And, and that's where people really don't realize how hard it is. And you got to give it credit to the racers who you see out there racing week in and week out, because those guys have broken so many parts, refixed them, and going back and forth. So
let me tell you, when I had to buy a screw and it cost, I was like, why that screw cost so much money? Or I had to buy weather stripping, or I was like, I'm going to have to start selling something other than purses, because, some money going to have to come from somewhere. And I don't have a shop. See, that's the difference, too. A lot of people, they have shops, so they can work on their own car. Or they got an actual homeboy that could work on their car and do it for little or nothing. When you're a person that you can't work on your car and you don't have a shop, you kind of just.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's where, going back to your one of your first questions is how I balance my personal life, my shop life, and my racing life. Is we brought in, years and years ago, I felt bad because I befriend every one of my customers. I mean, when you start building these cars, you're going to lunch together. You're talking late at night about this, you're hearing about your family, crises. And I built a lot of cars and no one ever finished them, And then I had to start saying, hey, man, I want to see some of these cars get finished because I'm actually excited about them because, hey, I talked you into doing, people ask me, for my advice. But, it just got real complicated. So that's when this team Obnxsedz really started, where I wanted to see things, actually get to the finish. So I want to say, hey, man, I want to see you start your car. I want to see you drive your car. It means that much to me because we've already had hours and hours of conversations of what the car will do. Oh, I can't wait to do a burnout down, in front of my cousin's house, all that stuff where I was like, hey, man, not for nothing. I don't want all those old conversations to be, useless. So I'm going to help you in doing that. And that's where a lot of the team cars come into it as I drive a lot of cars for customers as well. So that's why I had to start telling people too. It's hey, man, if you really have you don't want to drive it at all, why are you going to build a car? Why don't you just join the team and help the team players out? And you can still get the same satisfaction of, being there, locking in the races and stuff like that. As like I said, it's just real tough. Like people really don't realize how hard it is, and especially like when they like see like pick up like a Hot Rod magazine, and they say like 10 seconds for $10,000. They don't realize that 300 labor hours is not in that bill. That a lot of people miss out that they don't have the hookup or they're getting free parts for these budgets. So that's where a lot of people run into these things where like, oh, I'll buy a junkyard 5.3 LS and put a turbo on it, and I'm gonna make 1,200 horsepower. And you're like, well, you're forgetting that they got sponsored fuel pumps. They got this. They had a shop to do a video or do the magazine article, so they're doing all the labor for free.
Right.
So.
That's why when people ask me when my car will be done, I tell them 2025.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I tell them the 21st of February. So.
Where do you see Big Rim Racing in 5 years?
In 5 years, it's going to be real tricky, actually. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about it. I think there's going to be, the shows are going to kind of combine. I think there's going to be a little bit of a series going on, is what would make the most sense, for the racers, for the promoters, for the sponsors and stuff like that, and for the fans. But the rules, I think, are going to catch up pretty quick. The cars are going way too fast for not really having any of the safety stuff in them. And like I said, thank God there hasn't been any bad wrecks yet. But, for what the cars have, we shouldn't even pass any of the we don't pass any of the requirements. So it's pretty rough that I think as soon as it gets to a certain level, they're going to put the eyes on it, and then they're going to want all the roll cages and that stuff. And then it's going to take away from the street style look of what the cars are. It's like, that's what we were worried about when we were like black flagged from a lot of people, how fast we were going. We almost put drag radials on the car, and we're just going to, put a time on the board and race, some Skylines and GTRs and just beat up on Lamborghinis. And then we knew that if we put the time up, then obviously they would realize that all the cars needed a lot of roll cages, and, the vert just wouldn't look the same with a big 10-point cage and a funny car cage and all that stuff. So
then, do you think if that happens, then more of the racers will just revert back to street racing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think for the shows to get really big with the big sponsorship, the fans deserve to have like a big show for the Big Rim stuff. Then the rules are going to come with it, and then it's going to kind of, mess it up a little bit. But we'll see. Like when Big Low spun out, I know our home track was like, all right, motherfuckers, we know how fast you go, and this just proves how dangerous this is. So, right. They started trying to mandate more things. So,
right.
And I was like,
were you were there? Was that during you guys' show?
Yeah.
So how did you? So let me just. Let me see. I was up in the stands when it happened, and I actually knew the car on 30s was fast, but I said, okay, Turbo Joe got a rabbit foot. He's fast. I'm not taking that away from him, but everybody agrees that Turbo Joe is he be winning, and you don't think he'll win, so he got a rabbit foot in his pocket. So I bet with Turbo Joe. And when the cars pulled off and the green car pulled away, I was like, oh, I lost my money. And then Low started spinning. And at that moment, I wasn't thinking about losing my money. I was thinking, oh, my God, I hope Low is okay. And then when he stopped, he didn't hit anything. He didn't even hit the wall, and he was this close to the wall. I was like, oh, my God. That was like one of the most terrifying moments for me at the track in those few seconds that I probably have ever had outside of in Texas when that Cutlass hit the wall. So
yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, I was quite worried about it, because Lo and I are good friends, and then knowing that the car was on 30s, so it sits a little higher. As soon as it spun, I was worried that Turbo Joe was gonna T-bone Lo and then send Lo rolling down the track. Was what my worry was about that, and that was the same thing with the track. They were worried about that too. Is seeing that we got lucky that Turbo Joe was able to sneak by him. And then, like I said, I mean, once again, that showed that it was better for Joe to be lucky than to be good. That, he was not the faster car that day. He just was able to get around Low when Low spun out. And like I said, that's what faulted us with Flacco's donk, is that we could have made plenty of passes faster and won so many races. And then we were always looking for perfection, and we were running good. We just weren't locking in races, or people knew we were too fast, so they weren't going to give us an easy race, and we weren't hounding people. As I think, maybe if we were just more aggressive and, just talk shit to everyone, we would have got our races. But, it is what it is.
But I don't think that that's who Flacco is. Like, Flacco's not the type of person that, from what I've seen, I don't know him personally, but from what I've seen, he's just not that type of person. He don't even do most of the talking.
He's too friendly, he wants to tell everyone, talk to everyone. You're like, sometimes that's what worries us with Flacco. We got to tell, hey, man, this is grudge racing. This isn't, friendship time. That he tries to befriend everyone and tell everyone what's going on. And that's what hurts us.
He's so mild-mannered, though. He's so mild-mannered. I just be like, man, I don't even understand how he got involved in this. I don't even understand how he got involved in it. He's just so mild-mannered.
Like I said, he's always been into cars and racing. And then, I guess that's just what happens, Like when you build a car, and that's what is sometimes hard for me to keep, like, my team members together. Is you don't build a car unless you're alpha male and you want to, like you said, you want to be the fastest lady. I want to have, so everyone goes into the same mindset of, hey, I want to be the fastest, and how do I be the fastest? How do I hustle something to get my parts the right way? And, and that's what sometimes hurts the industry or, the people is that a lot of people, when you're a hustler, and just like, hey, you're a go-getter is what I mean, then it's tough, for people to say, oh, here, I don't mind paying you, and if it broke, don't worry about it, I'll buy another part. Like people do something, then it breaks, and they're like, hold up, no, man, I bought that new, and you're like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I installed it, but now we got to install another one, and it gets tough with that. Here, I need to go find my phone charger. I think my phone's about to die. Hold on here.
So we only have a few more minutes. While my last question is, what would you like for your fans or followers or supporters to know about you?
Like I said, I think one of the biggest things is just how much I like racing and stuff, and try to help everyone. And like I said, try to just help the whole game of racing out. That, like I said, early on, a lot of people were always worried, like they don't want me to work on their car because they thought I wouldn't put a fast enough tune-up because I work on someone else's car, as I try to make everyone faster no matter what. And then to me, that's how you get the game better. As like with my team, we even have like an A team and a B team where we make, some of the guys race each other to make the other ones faster. That, when we sit, when we just worry about certain cars, some of the guys just feel, oh, I'm the fastest, so I don't need to worry about going faster. As when we have the B team guys chomping at the bit, the A team guys know, hey, wait up. If I don't keep making improvements, then we won't be faster. And, so when we go out of town, then we know, hey, we've been battle contested with each other, so we know we should do good out of town.
Someone asked in the comments, when are you guys going to race Hollywood?
Like I said, we've always been on the same team, so that was really the only reason we didn't race already. but the talk was like we were going to race for our last race, Money on the Line. We were going to try to race just because the fans wanted to see it, but they didn't have Pocahontas ready yet. So that's why we ended up racing or calling Boost Doctor and setting that race up. And then we, as the main event, and did the co-main event, Hollywood with the Monte Carlo versus, Grand Nasty. Was that reason that we say, hey, the fans want to see us and Hollywood go at it, but their car wasn't ready. So we said, hey, why don't we split it and we'll race Boost Doctor, which is a fan favorite, and Grand Nasty, they couldn't get their race off. So we'll split the money and try to do it. But like I said, I was at Hollywood shop numerous times this week helping him, or he was helping me with some stuff. And then a lot of times at the track, I helped them with a bunch of stuff with the tune-ups and whatever. So I think as like what we were saying, as like a main event kind of deal, we're going to race each other and give the fans what they want to see and just, have fun. I mean, that's what it's about. Like you said, I feel that Flacco's car is the fastest and they feel that their car is the fastest. I mean, we both know what each other's run. So, like I said, it's going to be a good race. It's just, but been before, we would always push, like even with, I think like Money on the Line 1, Donkmaster knew he couldn't beat Flacco's car. So then we raced him with Hollywood's car, as Hollywood wasn't as fast as us back then. And, he was able to beat Donkmaster and do good. And then later on when, Hollywood was running real fast and stuff, then Flacco's car was the B car, and we raced CC,
Well, I can just say I'm very glad that, you guys finally got it worked out where Flacco was, when I seen him, was looking really good, during the Dump Racing Super Bowl. I was extremely excited because I've always really pulled for Flacco's car. I always thought that he was probably, because I didn't get the privilege to see that time slip, but I've always thought that he was probably maybe if he's not the fastest, he's at least in the top 3 fastest. So I always wanted to see him. I always wanted to see him do well. And on top of that, you guys are really humble when it comes to, you know what I'm saying? I know you talk a lot more to him because you're in the grudge racing, but he's really, really a humble and nice guy. And the fans sent a lot of that to my DM saying, that team, they're really, really humble and they like you guys. So you guys are genuinely a fan favorite. Why do they call you Machete Eddie?
Early on was, like I said, my grudge racing career, I always leave first, at the tree. So it ended up being a buddy of mine was just like joking around. He's like, oh, Eddie, the Machete Eddie chopping heads off at the tree. And it was just a funny name that it was one of my buddies that always would come up with a new nickname every time we were at the track. And we were just winning grudge races with me driving the Regal. And he was just like, oh, Machete Eddie chopped another head off at the tree. And it just rhymed good. I was like, I actually like that one. Fuck it, let's ride with it. So
that's a good question. Do you think state loyalty in Florida holds back good races?
I guess a little bit in a way. I mean, like I said, the main one would really just been Hollywood and I. It was really, that was the one that didn't happen just because we were on the same team. So we were just kind of picking everyone else off was, what we were trying to do. But like I said, Big Low and Two Fly, I mean, they were always usually pretty easy with negotiations. I used to work on Big Low's Malibu and travel with Big Low Racing. So me and him are good friends. But like I said, there was numerous times where, hey, we're going to race? Yeah, no problem. So that never stopped it. But between Hollywood and I, that was, like I said, we were on the same team. So we were always looking to go at everyone else was kind of the talk early on in the game. It was like, hey, until we beat everyone and we have no one else to race, then we'll race each other. But till then, let's, worry about other people and kind of try to share data together. So
I hate that teams won't race each other. There are some cars on some teams that I really want to see race. But
that's why we came up with that whole thing about paying the racers. And we did it even before the donk game started, was like for the fans, they put a show on. And even the track used to pay me on a test and tune where we would just put two of my team cars together and just put a show on for the crowd. And then it was nicer because there wasn't as much of like the aggravation, of two teams against each other. It was more of just let's have fun and talk shit of like what it used to be back in the day of, when you were younger, say when you were 16, 17 years old, you weren't gambling for money. You were just racing your friend 5 times on the Saturday. Hey man, let's try again. Let's go to, get some lunch. We're going to race, down the street. And we started racing each other that way. And that's what we're trying to bring back is to even make it where to help the racers out, to keep the cars running, you could test against each other and put a show on for the fans. And then the track will pay that, so sometimes like if we made a deal with the track that if we say we were like on a Friday night test and tune, we would run as long as we posted on Monday that we were going to race each other, they would give us money to go test and would buy our race gas, our nitrous, and stuff like that, and just put something on for the fans. Because I told them, I said, it's stupid that we all are in the no time lanes and categories, but we're not running against each other. I said, how, like when fans come to a Friday night, they want to see some kind of action. They don't want to see Friday night test and tune. They want to see Friday night under the lights. They want to see some kind of action. So, like that. That's why, like you'll see some more of the race. I hope some of the other promoters try to do what we are about paying to make sure the races happen.
Right.
You don't pay the racer to show up. You pay the racer to perform. And winner gets money and loser still gets a little bit of money if they want.